print a sheet just for today? Is it worth it? It is worth it. All right. Huh? All right. Perfect. Excellent. Good to go. Anyways, here's the story. It has been determined by the higher-ups in this yeshiva that we are not continuing this program after today till next year. That's like the oldest jokes, right? Why? Because tomorrow night is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. All right? And today is the last day that we're going to be learning this program because tomorrow you got a lot of things to do. All right? So I'm just going to go over. Number one, you have a slichus that is about the size of 3 slichuses. I'm serious. It's about 3 times the slichus that you did today. 3 times that is tomorrow.
Where do you done it?
I usually done by Levi Yitzchok. Yeah? Anyways. What's that?
Why don't you just come here?
Why don't I just come here? I'll be honest with you and blunt. I need a break. I'm here from the morning to the night. At least Shachris, I have my own time. I could meet with God without, No, by the way, when you are a rabbi and you're in the place of that you are a rabbi, there's a lot of pressure there. You think, you guys look at me, look at this rabbi, he's just, he's just davening. He's just, no, there's pressure on me. If I decide, if I come to shul in yeshiva and I decide not to daven properly, or if I'm too lazy and I'm like, and everybody's like, look, the rabbi's doing it, so if he's doing it, why can't I do it? Right? I can't, you're expecting me to be better than the rabbi, right? That's actually why I do come here very often, even though it's not officially under my job description. I don't have to be here for Shabbos, but I usually come here davke because I want that pressure. I'm serious. I want that pressure, Like this way I have to think, if I was just sitting in a shul, that I was just one of the other guys there, right? And then I'm just sitting there davening, right? And what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, then whatever. I could be lazy. I can do this. I put my head down and go to sleep. I can do a lot of different things, right? But if you're sitting in yeshiva where everybody's looking at you, then, man, what could you do? Huh? I don't want to burst your bubble, but you don't realize how much you do look at me. And I've even seen it. You know how many times I've done something and people come to me and like, Rabbi, what's going on? Like, why do you do this? Or sometimes I see a bacher doing something and I tell him and I come to him and I'm like, why are you doing that? He's like, what do you mean? I saw you do that yesterday. And I'm like, oops, I got to be careful. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, one day came out and he was missing his two of his buttons were not buttons. He had the top button, the second button was open, then 2 buttons, and then the next button was open. Right? There's people till today will leave that button out. Those buttons. Why? Because the Rebbe was not wearing those buttons. Now, could there be a Kabbalistic reason to not wearing those buttons? It is possible. It's possible. However, it could be the Rebbe was in a rush. By the way, the Rebbe had this thing, you should know, the Rebbe had this thing about maximizing the use of his time. It's incredible. It's crazy how detailed the Rebbe was on maxing every single time, every second. As a matter of fact, somebody once noticed the Rebbe walks to the door. As he's walking to the door, he pulls his keys out. By the time he's at the door, he already has his keys. Right? Some people, they get to the door and then they put their keys in their pocket, but that's a waste of time. So it could be the Rebbe realized that when you put on one of these shirts, they're not all necessary. You could miss 2 buttons. So why should he spend the time buttoning those 2 buttons when he could have spent that time better well used? Right? That could be a reason. I don't know that that's the reason. I have no idea why. And I'm not sure if the Rebbe always went around with missing those buttons or not. Right? I don't know.
I doubt it.
You doubt it. Yeah?
You only saw it one time?
No, again, there's one picture of it. I'm not sure if they noticed it more than once. Yeah, that's it. Anyways, back to what we're saying. We're heading into the new year, which is starting tomorrow night, Rosh Hashanah, and we're going to be praying, people. We're going to be on a marathon prayer. We're going to pray for 3 days straight. The 2 days of Rosh Hashanah and then another day of Shabbos. And I've even heard that there's going to be a Kiddush on Shabbos, not on Rosh Hashanah, but on Shabbos there's going to be a Kiddush. This is awesome. It's awesome. Baruch Hashem. Can I know how?
What the last place is the 3 Yom Tov?
Israel, it's very, very rare because it could only come out on Rosh Hashanah and
Has to be Shabbos also.
probably about every 4 years or so, approximately on average. Yeah? Probably every 4 years. Every day on the Jewish calendar could actually only come on 4 days of the week. Pick any day on the Jewish calendar, and that day could only come out on 4 days of the week. 4 days out of 7. All right?
Why?
Yeah. Zev Frankel says, I don't think the Rebbe was misdressed. Often he was always very well put together. Which is true. It's true. It is true. Yeah. Yeah. It is true. So again, the fact that the Rebbe didn't button those buttons, even if it was once, chances are that it was there was some reason to it. The question is, what is the reason, and what does that reason apply to you? I have a theory also. I said the theory, but you missed it. So why should I listen to your theory if you didn't come to listen to my theory? What's your theory?
My theory?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if once happened, if you really, you have to, when you wake up, for myself, okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not like the Rabbi, so I wake up too late, I'm late already, need to run, So when you're really, 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 really late, the cab is out, so you gotta jump in, you're gonna skip your buttons. Because you don't have a choice. You want to be dressed, but you don't want to be open, so you're going to skip buttons. So I think with the Rebbe, his time is so expensive, his time is so yakar, every little second is important for him. So for him to skip a button, to save a second, he could do something else more important than closing a button.
Yeah. So you know what I should tell you, Shalom Ber? Shalom Ber, right? Moshe Dovber. Dovber. So Moshe or Dovber? Or Moshe Dovber? You want all 3 names? Dovber. All right, Dovber, I want to tell you something very important. I actually just said the same thing before you came.
You're one soul.
I literally said the same thing just before you came. All right, we have a Selvin. I've never heard of this guy, Selvin. He says hi. Hi.
Slevin.
Huh? Slevin. Thanks for coming. Let's continue. All right. Anyways, we are learning in the Gemara, we learned about somebody that blows the shofar into a ditch, whether or not they are Yotze on Rosh Hashanah for blowing the shofar. We said the person in the ditch is definitely going to be Yotze. The people out of the ditch, it depends. If they heard the shofar direct sound, they are Yotze. If they heard the reverberation from the echo, they are not Yotze. Okay? Good. Now we're going to go on to something else completely if you are willing to listen. Okay? I'm assuming if you're sitting down at the table, you're willing to listen. Okay? Good. Omar Rabbo, says Rabbo. This great says Rabbo. He says, Shama mixas tekiya bebor, umixas tekiya al sfasa bor yotza. He says, what happens if you heard part of the blow when you were in the pit, and part of the blow when you're out of the pit? Says Rabba, you are in fact yotze, you did fulfill your obligation, even though, as we said, again, we said if you hear it in the pit, you're definitely yotze. If you hear it outside of the pit, depends on which sound you heard. Rabba says if you heard the first part, or if you heard part of the sound in the pit and part of the sound outside of the pit, you are yotze. Now, I would assume Rabba's referring to a situation where when you went outside of the pit, you heard the reverberation. But because when you heard in the pit, you started hearing the sound, therefore when you went out, even though you're now hearing the reverberation, you're still yotze. Okay? Now, it doesn't make sense to Shmuel. Shmuel thinks that the Gemara doesn't make sense. We're going to buy a time machine, we're going to send him in it, and boom, he's going to go to Rabbi. He's going to say, Rabbi, I'm sorry, it don't make sense. That's what you're going to do? You have the guts to do that? Right? When you were by the Baal Shem Tov, would you actually sit at the grave of the Baal Shem Tov and say, I think you don't make sense? No. So why are you telling Rabbi it doesn't make sense in his face? The Arizal says that when you mention a sage by name, he literally comes down and he's right here, right now. Okay? Again, right now, Rabbi is sitting here. I'm not sure which sheet, maybe here, it could be here. I don't know.
You're right.
Because I can't see it.
Yeah,
You could say, I can't make sense of that. Or you can say, I don't understand it. But to say that doesn't make sense. Hey, don't try to play these things. He might actually do it. You don't know, right? Let's leave him alone. and let him do whatever he needs to do, and that's that. All right, listen carefully.
Look at me like that.
Let's say clearly says that if you hear part of it, you're not yet to.
Listen. You want to listen? Okay. Now we need to analyze Rabbi. He says it doesn't make sense because he found a contradiction. Now you say because you can't hear part of the sound, right?
You can't hear part of the shofar as a kosher. You hear the rubber.
Who said? Again, you started hearing it in the pit, which means when you started, you heard it kosher. Right. When you went out,
you heard it not kosher.
Yeah, but you already heard part of the kosher sound.
So then, let's forget about the pit then, because
again, when you were in the, we said when you're in the pit,
you heard the kosher sound.
When you're in the pit, you heard the kosher sound.
Yeah.
Yes. When you came out of the pit, you heard the not
sound.
kosher sound. However, it's the same sound. It's just one long sound. Because you heard part of the sound in the kosher, therefore, even if you heard part of the sound in the not kosher, you are fulfilling your obligation, your yotze.
Didn't we learn with the trumpets that you need the whole thing?
Huh?
Didn't we learn with the Chatzotzot that you need to hear the whole thing? We had the question with the Chatzotzot.
Oh, so that's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah, this is what
that's
I was
what I
saying.
thought you were saying.
That is what I was saying.
Okay, in the previous Gemara,
You said that you hear the whole thing. So if you hear part of it not kosher, that means obviously
so
it's not kosher.
Shmuel, this is a reason why you should maintain coming to the shir, because you're going to learn some very important aspects of Talmudic knowledge that is vital to you understanding the Talmud, and the proof of it is you tried to throw Rava out when he is now throwing you out because you misunderstood the Gemara from before. The Gemara before, the Gemara that discussed that you cannot hear part of the sound, no. The Gemara wanted to suggest that you could be yotz if you heard part of a sound and not the other part of the sound. That's what the Gemara wanted to suggest. We disproved that has to be. And since we disproved that has to be, that doesn't mean that we determined that you cannot. You understand? We determined from the previous Gemara that tried to logically prove from that particular case that you could hear part of a sound and be yotze. We rejected the proof.
By a different solution.
We had a different solution to prove that was not a proof. But here you have Rabbi, you're learning something so important over here. Here, Rabbi is actually saying a very clear rule. Now, if Rabbi is saying a clear rule, now it's a different situation. Again, the Gemara didn't prove that hearing part of a sound, you're not yotze. It just proved that you cannot prove that you are yotze. But it could be that Rabbi had other reasoning. Okay, now Rabbi is an authority. If Rabbi says something, we assume that he's correct until proven otherwise. You understand? And therefore, that itself, the very fact that Rabbi says this statement seems to prove that he in fact holds that hearing part of the sound is good enough. Which means this itself is some form of proof that this is halacha. You understand?
Yeah.
Good.
No, my question is, so why doesn't he say that? Why doesn't he just say that halacha straight up that you could hear part of the shofar and your kosher?
Oh, so that's another good question. And that's why the Gemara, when you have the Gemara, you have to understand. Rabbi said a statement.
Yeah.
You know what usually follows Rabbi's statement?
A bunch of questions at him.
The analysis of that statement. Okay, so first let's understand the statement and not argue with the Rabbi on his statement, and let the Gemara do the analysis. And when the Gemara does the analysis, hopefully we'll understand it.
Yeah. Sure.
All right?
Thank you.
Good. Now you came and you made the problem. You don't want to hear the solution. You have to go. You're busy. You're busy. You're busy.
Sure do, huh?
Go do what you need to do, guys. Okay. Okay. So the Gemara, in fact, basically says. Oh, so let's continue. We cut Rabba off. Rabba was in the middle of a statement before he was so rudely interrupted. He was rudely interrupted that you cut him in half and you said, no, you don't make sense. And then Rabbi showed, listen, you don't make sense. Right? Because the sense he tried to make of this it was inaccurate. Anyways, can I know how to? Thank you. Where are we? We are going to the actual statement of Rabbi. Rabbi says if you heard part of the blowing when you were in the pit, part when you went out of the pit, you are fulfilling your obligation, which means you're okay. Mixas tchia koidem sheyala amud hashachar. If you heard part of the blowing before dawn, umixas tchia la'achar sheyala amud hashachar, and part of the blowing after dawn, lo yotza, you're not yotza. All right? So he says again, if you hear part in the pit and part out of the pit, right, then you are fulfilling your obligation. However, if you hear part before the time of obligation, which is before dawn, versus after dawn, then he says you're not fulfilling your obligation.
Even if it's without a half
Now again, we have not yet analyzed this. We don't yet know what we're talking about. Okay? We're going to get to the analysis, and based on this analysis, we are going to figure out whether, whether there's an issue over here or not. Right? Good. We're on Daf Koyach. Power. Amud Aleph. Yeah. By the way, you are yoytze tekiya shofar, blowing the shofar. You're yoytze if you hear the shofar after dawn. You don't have to wait even to sunrise after dawn. As a matter of fact, there's a story. Maybe some of you heard this story, but it's a very important story to retell. It was actually a time where Napoleon was fighting the Tsar of Russia. Okay, and it was a massive war, and Napoleon was winning, and it was getting to a vital point, an existential threat for the Tsar, where if Napoleon gained a little bit more on the Tsar, he maybe would have knocked him out. And the Kabbalists of the time, they saw in heaven that there was a massive argument whether to allow Napoleon to win or whether to allow the Tsar of Russia to win. And amongst the Kabbalists, there was actually differences of opinion. Even down here in this world, some of the Kabbalists felt that Napoleon should win, and some Kabbalists felt that the Tsar should win, including the founder of Chabad Hasidism. He wanted the Tsar to win, right? As a matter of fact, you could look at it today, Napoleon actually represented freedom. However, freedom meant freedom from religion, not freedom of religion. As a matter of fact, Napoleon sent the Statue of Liberty, or in his time, I'm not sure exactly if it was him, but in Napoleon's time, they sent Statue of Liberty. It was after that time, but it was based on him.
They sent the Statue of Liberty for like the centennial, 100-year anniversary of the United
Yeah.
1876.
Was that late? Oh, I thought it was that early. Anyways, the point is that Napoleon, a lot of people looked at Napoleon and the American Revolution as basically two brothers doing the same thing, but it wasn't. There was a massive difference between the two. Napoleon believed in freedom from religion, which basically meant that the government itself controls religion, decides when, how, and where you can be religious, right? They want to determine how you can be religious, right? Yes, there was freedom in the fact that they had democracy. There was freedom in the fact that they were very against anti-Semitism, and that's why many rabbis wanted to back Napoleon, because they felt that it would be better for the Jews, right? There would be less anti-Semitism and less persecution, etc. Jews would be somewhat equal, and they can operate freely. Okay. However, the founder of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, he smelled the problem. He smelled a bigger problem. It's a trap. Exactly. It was a trap. And by the way, it still is somewhat of a trap. Okay? The trap is that when you say, I'll give you freedom, right? It basically just means I'm going to take away your burden of slavery from the one you have, and I'm going to give you a different one, right? And as a matter of fact, the West always speaks about the fact that they have freedom. However, there's more compulsion in the West than there is in any of the Eastern countries. In the Eastern countries, you have to if you look at some of the Eastern countries, take Morocco, for example, or I don't know if it's considered an Eastern country, but a Muslim country. Morocco, they have a king, and that king, you have to respect him. Okay? I'm telling you, there's rules about it, and if you disrespect the king, forget about it. Right? However, if you want to actually do your day-to-day life, it's actually much easier to do it over there than it is over here. Right? Especially in Israel, because it's a democracy. In every democracy, there's more compulsion than anywhere else. If you go to a non-democratic country, usually there's a few things that you really have to do to kind of serve the king, and then everything else, do what you want. Right? Whereas in democracy, it's more compulsory than any other system ever. right? There's more rules and regulations on what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, and they're enforced, right? They're enforced horribly, right? So your choice is, could you be a little bit enslaved to a king, or could you be a lot enslaved to a democracy, right? That's your choice, really. And again, I'm not suggesting that democracy is a worse system, okay? Because very often when you had a dictator, they did tremendous damage. If you ask me, by the way, and it might sound a little bit, how should I say this? It might sound a little bit controversial. But if you ask me, I honestly think that the best form of government is a dictator, is one person that knows what he's doing, that rules the country. Just like we speak about the Messianic era, there'll be a Messianic king, etc. That is the best form of government. And that one person, based on his own personal interest to ensure that the country works better, he runs the show. Just like, look at every company. Every company has one CEO. You ever heard of a company that has different people? Even when they have a board, but then the board hires a CEO. Because if the board would try to make the day-to-day decisions, forget about it. The company would collapse, right? They hire a CEO, here's the big boss, he's the one that does it, right? Now, that being said, there's the big problem with having a single dictator. Number one, right, does he know what he's doing, right? Is he really a smart enough guy to control the country? That's number one. Number two, obviously he could have advisors, but he has to be smart enough even to pick the right advisors and to listen to the right advisors, right? He has to actually have the ability to rule. That's number one. Number two is very often, if you look at throughout dictators, is very often they went rogue, right? Or they had things in their mind where they just, caused wars or they caused destruction to certain people. And that's another problem, right? So the real problem with dictatorship is not the very essence of dictatorship. The problem with dictatorship is A, having the right dictator, and B, being able to replace them if necessary in a peaceful way, right? And you may suggest, and again, I say you may suggest, I'm not taking sides on this either, but you may suggest that for that reason, it's worth it to all the garbage and all the horrible symptoms of democracy are perhaps worth it in order to ensure that a dictator doesn't go rogue. Because all it takes is one dictator to go rogue and take a guy like Hitler to somehow put himself as a dictator, and before you know it, the whole Europe was on fire.
You see today also
right?
in Europe, like the democracy is kind of falling apart in the sense that big companies are taking over the power. In fact, it's all the big companies there ruling
the all right, whatever. Meaning, but that's actually the failure of democracy itself. It's the failure of democracy itself when the people stop governing themselves and they end up being ruled by other powers, etc. Now, again, if you had one king, that one king, what's that? What's that? That's what I said. Again, as I said, I honestly believe that a dictatorship is the best form of government if you're able to put the right person in power. And by the way, till today, if you look at some of the countries that have dictators, that have kings that have complete ruling power, the ones that are good kings, their countries run very, very well, right? As a matter of fact, some of the best growing economies today are in the Middle East where they have dictators. Take Saudi Arabia, very wealthy. The UAE, very wealthy. Why? Because Singapore is dictator, right? 100%. It's one of the biggest business capitals of the world, right? There's so many places where you have a dictator that actually knows what he's doing, right? And it's actually the best way because you cut out all the red tape and you cut out all the regulations that are built on other interests, right? All that only happens in democracy. And I'm not going to get into why because we're not giving a shear on democracy. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Cuba, yeah. Never met such happy people. Then why are they trying to swim across to Florida? Yeah, good experience. Okay, so why doesn't he move to Cuba? So move to Cuba. What's wrong? So nice. Go move there. Yeah.
I don't know, Rabbi. I think dictatorship can only work if the dictator is Mashiach.
Again.
If it's a regular human being, it doesn't work. Also for a CEO of a company.
Kings were messed up. It's also
What's that?
Right?
Like,
Our kings in the Tanakh.
Here, hold on. Let me finish my point.
It's one point at a time. One person at a time.
In like a CEO position, for example, if the CEO messes up, the board can fire him, or the shareholders can fire him. Right? In a real dictatorship, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly what I said. What I said very clearly is that the reason why a dictatorship has issues is A, you have to make sure that the right guy gets put in there, and B, you have to be able to take him out if he's not doing his job right. And that's the problem. One of the problems with the dictatorship is who's the boss, the dictator. Well, he's definitely not going to relinquish his power that easily.
Yeah.
Right? No dictator is going to just say, okay, I'm going to stop being dictator. So that's why in a company, it works very well, because if the CEO is doing his job properly, so then he stays in. But again, if you know how boards work with CEOs, they don't tell him, they don't micromanage him, right? He makes the decisions day to day. Yeah, if the company, he needs to answer to his board. If somehow $1 billion went missing, he needs to answer the board. How exactly did it happen? And if the board feels that he's negligent or that he's no longer qualified to run the company, they could remove him. Now, if we had something like that, that I think would be an awesome country. If you had some type of dictator where there was somebody or some balance of power, but not a balance of power where they have different powers. A balance of power where somebody could literally just remove him, like we could replace him. So that should be the only thing. Just like a CEO.
Rabbi, this guy needs our prayers, sir.
Who needs our prayers?
He needs our prayers. Tell him to give us his name.
Newish Samuel wants our prayers. He should be blessed. That's what the Shem. Anyways, what's that?
That was with the prophet.
That what? Yeah. Right.
The king in Israel isn't the whole, right? He's the authority, right?
Yeah.
But then he has God above him.
God is above the right.
Is to keep him in line, right? If he totally messes up.
And then you had Samuel, who actually replaced Shaul.
Right.
Yeah. But by the way, Samuel didn't necessarily replace Shaul. Okay, he wasn't able to take him out of power. Right? Samuel himself wasn't able to take Shaul out of power. But he basically blessed David to take power when Shaul was going to end up getting killed himself. So, meaning Shaul had to get killed in order to replace him. And again, that's one of the issues with dictatorships, is that and by the way, very often you can have somebody that is qualified that loses their qualification over time. Of course he was.
He was bad king?
Again, a dictator means that everything in the country goes based on him. He says and it goes.
Now people are on him.
Right. Anyways, by the way, in England, we have somebody here from the UK. In England, there's actually it's online. Yeah. Like in the UK right now. Okay? In England, they actually have an interesting system where the king, by the way, not queen anymore, king. The king is actually, legally, the king is a dictator. However, it's very interesting that they were smart. They realized that democracy was taking over the world, and they realized that if they don't watch out, they're going to get kicked out of the country as well. So what do? They basically formed a democracy that is completely beholden to them. However, they don't mix in, right? And therefore, they continue getting support. The government keeps on collecting taxes and paying all their bills, right? They have castles and they have mansions and they have guards and they have food, whatever. They literally have a budget. They have a government budget to basically run their lives and do whatever they want, right? And they don't mix in. And as a matter of fact, it is an interesting form. And you might think it sounds like they're cheating. It's not so much, because the very fact that they are there, the very fact that the King of England exists, kind of keeps the democracy in check. Because at the end of the day, the people in power know that technically he could put us out of power. Technically, even though the king or queen of England has never stepped into politics already in 70, 80 years, but they know that they could be. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but in England, they actually need to report to the king. The prime minister has a meeting, I'm not sure, once a week or something. The prime minister literally comes in and reports to the king, just like a CEO reports to the board. Right? The prime minister has to report to the king how things are going in the country, or what's the issues at hand. They have to do that. Right? Yeah?
When I was in England many years ago,
Yeah.
people there, they were like, even though that was the queen,
Yeah.
the king doesn't actually run the country.
Yeah.
They say something, like publicly,
Yeah.
they don't go against what the king says.
Right.
The king just goes out with a particular issue.
But they try to stay out of it. They try to stay out of it. Yeah, because there's a respect. The point is that the king in England, right? And by the way, the same thing would apply to many. England's not the only one that has a king. You have Morocco. You have it says Singapore. You have Saudi Arabia. You have a lot of places where there are a king or queen. I think even in Europe, was it the Dutch, the Netherlands? The Netherlands, they also have a king. Yeah. Again, there is some value. Again, there's some value of having somebody there who it's their personal interest that the government that the company runs properly.
But in England, though, now,
Yeah.
the way they let Islamic fundamentalists off the country,
Yeah.
nice king actually acted like a king. He's not doing his basic job.
No.
Well, again, we'll see if it gets too bad. That's it. Slevin says France also has a king and queen. I didn't even know that. They said France does.
They killed the king.
They killed the king.
They batted him.
Dead.
What?
Louis XIV.
Anyways.
When?
French Revolution. All right. Yes. Very good.
American model. Just make sure the citizens have enough guns. If the king messes up, just kill the king. It's the American idea, no?
American idea. Give everybody a gun, and if they mess up, if the king messes up too bad, we'll shoot him.
Louise Cox says Denmark has a king.
Denmark.
I was in England
Yeah.
one time, I was on a ramble.
Where are you from? You said Netherlands, right? What's Denmark is next to Netherlands, no? They also have a king. There you go. All right. Yeah.
Our king doesn't want to be a king anymore.
Why? He literally said that he wants to quit.
Yeah, he goes to bars, he's like in shorts walking around.
Serious?
Yeah, he's like,
And do people like approach him and like, hey, king, how are
He's
you?
like chilling, playing games with people.
He has, like,
playing
Secret
soccer,
Service
you
with
know,
him?
he's like totally like.
Did I have security? Does he have security with him or no?
Not so much. He has always one or two guys.
One or two guys just to make sure.
Yeah.
Good?
He won championship of toilet seats.
Good?
Toilet throwing.
All right. Anyways, let's get back to the point. I have a new lover over here. Name is Peter. No, Peter. I hope it's not Peter. Piotr. Piotr. Says, I love you, Shmuel. Very nice. Thank you. I love you too. I don't know who you are, but I don't even know if you're a male or female. I don't know. I don't know.
Many years in England. Many years ago.
I don't know. Do you know this name? Anyways. Yeah.
I was being the other American. I was like, you gotta quit. Like, it's so ridiculous. Why don't you just get like rid of it? The whole thing is like ridiculous. And the guy would stop and return to me and say it's treason to talk about getting rid of the queen.
Yeah, you could get arrested.
Like he was like serious. Like you look like this hippie chill out dude.
He's like, that's it. You're gonna get arrested.
Whoa, slow down.
There you go. Don't mess.
Ugly American. We're about to
By the way, you should know about kings. In Morocco, they have a similar system to England, where they have an official parliament and everything. They have elections, but then they have a king, right? Now, there was a time where there was a massive, I think it was Hezbollah. I don't remember. One of the terrorist groups actually gained a lot of popularity in Morocco, and they actually got into the parliament, etc. And they fought a lot against Israel. And the Moroccan king, I wouldn't say he likes Israel, but he doesn't like being like we're against Israel, right? And so one time the king made like a public statement how he's not very happy with this party. This party had majority of the parliament, right? The next election, they didn't even make one seat, right? Just because the king came out publicly and says, I don't like the way these guys are working. Like he said something like that and it was done. Anyways, good.
His name is Kefaz.
Good. Let's continue. We have a little bit of Gemara, and I have this guy calling me, and so. Good. All right. Good. Kenai Nahara. So again, let's go through Rabba's statement. Rabba says if you heard part inside of the pit, heard part outside of the pit, you are Yotze. Part before day, part after day, no Yotze. Amarle Abaye. Abaye said to Rabba, Maishna Hosam de Be'ina Kula Tekiya. Bichiyuva. Why, when it comes to night and day, you say, I require you to have the entire blow in a time that you are obligated? Yeah. Vileka. So too with the pit, we said if you're inside the pit, you're Yotze. If you're outside the pit, you're not Yotze. How come in one situation where you heard part of the Tekiya properly and part of it not properly, we said you're not Yotze? However, by the pit, we said you are going to be Yotze. It seems like a contradiction. All right? Where are we? So the Gemara answers, Hashta, over here, Heichi Hashta. Heichi Hashta is a very important He word. It means here, now. Here, now. I mean, like, here now is like kind of like here and now, but it's also trying to say like, hold on a second, how could you even say that, right? Heichi Hashta, like, how is that even relevant, right? Hasam over there, Laila lavzman chiyuvahu. Night is not the time of hearing the shofar. Klal. Hachaber makim chiyuvahu. The pit is a place where you are chayav. La'isen oib nemebar. Lememer the Rabbi savar shamat tkiya beloy tzeif tkiya beloy tchil tkiya yatsa. And here, so basically from here, the Gemara concludes that Rabbi seems to be holding that if you hear part of a tekiah and not the other part of the tekiah, you are yotze as long as you heard it in a time where you could have been yotze. It has to be in the right time. Yeah? Good. All right? And that's the end of the Gemara for this year. We'll see you next year by the Shir. Okay, and should we go to questions or should we shut it down? What do you think? Should we give people a chance to ask everywhere? You could ask, they could ask, everybody. If anybody wants to ask questions, you can ask questions if you're online. You put it in the comments and we will attempt to answer your questions. I didn't see any questions up there. Really? We just had people saying, hi, we have someone, this person says, my name is Kefaz Deer. Is Deer like my name is Kefaz comma Deer, or is Deer part of their name? I don't know. I'll ask you. It's Kefaz. Where are you from, Kefaz? It sounds like, huh? He's a king of Yugoslavia. Slevin corrected. He wasn't talking about France. He agreed France doesn't have a king. Spain apparently also has Spain has a king. Can I know? Portugal. Yeah. Good.
So only hearing part of it at night doesn't matter because you're not obligated.
Again, if you hear part of it at night, you're not yotze, even if you heard the other part during the day, because night is not a time that you could hear it. Whereas if you heard part of it in the day, then it's counted in some way. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, good. If anybody out there on the line or here has questions, you could ask it. We'll give you about 2-3 minutes to ask your questions, and then we're going to go to having you learn on your own, which is really the most important time of your learning experience, etc. All right? Anybody has questions, now's your chance. Right? Good. Speak now, not forever, just till just till next year. Yes. Bezrat Hashem. Anybody here want to ask a question? No? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, nothing. Yeah? Yeah? No questions. No questions. Everything's simple. Everybody knows everything. No one needs my help. I might as well just kid. What on Yom Kippur we wear white. On Rosh Hashanah we don't only wear white. No. Only certain Hasidim will wear white. Certain Hasidim, the Chazan wears white. White is representative of the good angels. If you actually, in Kabbalistically, the good angels dress in full white and the bad angels are in black.
All year long we're bad angels.
Yeah. All right? Good. Shkoyach. All right, we don't have any questions here. We don't have any questions there. By the way, in a future class, you can prepare your questions in advance, and after we go to questions. What do you think about the British? I don't think about them much. Oh, he's pretty impressed. No, the truth is,
they have character.
they do have a lot of character.
Yeah, they went out of the EU without making too much respect. I mean,
No, the British people definitely have a character to them, and something very unique amongst the Western world. You go into their parliament. It's like I would go there just to watch it. It's like a ball game, man. It's like everybody's yelling at each other. You go to the Yankees game, everybody's yelling at the pitcher, right? That's like everybody yelling at one guy. Here, everybody's yelling at everybody simultaneously. It's cool. I actually watched some of the videos of the parliament. Everybody's yelling at everybody. It sounds like you come to United States of America, everybody has their turn. I'm going to give my speech, and everybody's going to listen to me for my 5 minutes until your 5 minutes are done. And once your 5 minutes are done, we're going to close out, and then I'm going to give it to somebody else, right? So no one listens to anybody over there, right? In America, everybody says their speech. No one listens to anybody. Here, everybody's yelling at each other the whole time. Good. Anyways, good. Good.
You like the Israeli Knesset also then?
Somebody asked, what about black faces?
Black faces?
I don't know about black faces.
What's that?
Huh? You don't know about, I don't know black.
60% of the crime.
Huh? That's, anyways. Good. The kingship priesthood. Well, I'm not exactly sure that question is from Shesh Moshzar. I'm not sure exactly what that question is, and that's that. All right? Somebody asked, he says like this, priesthood of Malki Tzedek, ever outlined in the Gemara. It has to speak about it. It actually says that Malki Tzedek was the priest until Abraham took it, meaning when Malki Tzedek passed away, the priesthood was passed on to Abraham, and that's actually how it went to the Jews, and then within the Jews it went to the children of Aaron, the king. But it actually, the Jewish priesthood that still exists till today comes through Malki Tzedek. Malki Tzedek was the king of God, of what was the Kohen, was the priesthood of God. And then when he died, it was transferred to Abraham, who, by the way, according to many opinions, was a student of Malki Tzedek. Malki Tzedek was Abraham's teacher and taught him a lot of the spirituality that he knew, according to many opinions. All right? Good. Can I know that? Good. All right, we have to close down, and we'll see you later. Thanks for coming. Come again. We won't be doing this till next Sunday. If that, by the way, I'm not sure if we're going to be doing next Sunday. Well, we should be doing it next Sunday. The reason I'm saying this is because tomorrow is the day before Rosh Hashanah. We're extremely busy. We have a lot to do. We won't be doing the class. And of course, Thursday and Friday is Rosh Hashanah. Saturday, we never do the class. Sunday is going to be the next time we do the class. Please watch. I put up some really nice videos, by the way, the last few days. And unfortunately, they're not getting enough views. So I need your help out there to get them some more views on my YouTube. If you're right now on Facebook, it's very simple. Go to YouTube and hit intellectual spirituality. You'll see my channel. You'll see all my videos, my shorts. I don't know why the views started going down. Maybe I'm just getting too boring in my old age, but apparently not, because there's a bunch of you out here online today. So go like the videos, share the videos. Let's keep it coming, etc. Yes, spread it around. All right, good. All right. Did Moses break the first tablets and transform them into Levitical priesthood? No, the tablets were not transferred into Levitical priesthood. The tablets were broken. They have nothing to do. The Levitical priesthood is something else completely. Yeah. Anyways, that's that. Okay. Have a great day. Nice to see you.